Best of r/entitled parents episode 158. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. This happened to me today and I still am scratching my head for the logic. Mandatory on my phone and non-English speaker disclaimer. Cast. Me, Karen and hero bus driver. I am a 34-year-old Dutch guy without a driver's license. It sucks but Dutch public transport kinda rocks, so for almost 2 years now I have been using it to get to my job, and in those 2 years I have never really had a bad experience that doesn't involve a late bus and rain, until today that is. Because of the pandemic, bus schedules have been adjusted to once or twice per hour. It is far from ideal, but I understand why. Kids are not going to school, so the bus company would lose money letting empty buses drive. But, when it came to the schedule I drew the short straw, because if I want to go by bus from home to my work I would be traveling 90 minutes instead of 40, and I would arrive at work 30 minutes earlier than normal. To me, this is not an option. So I decided to cycle to work halfway. That way I cut 30 minutes out of the trip and I get to work at my normal time. The one problem today is that I am asthmatic and it was quite windy out this morning. So I get to the bus station this morning already struggling for breath. I quickly lock my bike and walk towards the terminal, focusing on my breathing. 5 minutes later the bus arrives. I greet the driver and sit down. A minute later our Karen of the story enters the bus. She takes a seat on the row next to mine, and a few minutes later the bus driver starts the bus and off we go. I still feel like struggling for breath, and while coughing I quickly get my inhaler and chamber out, assemble it and start using it as I struggle to breathe. It instantly works and I feel precious oxygen enter my lungs. This piques Karen's attention. "What are you doing?" she asks. "Taking my medication. I have asthma and with this weather it was quite a struggle getting here," I replied. "Does it help with breathing?" she asks, and I nod my head. "Well, yes." She extended the E. "I have kids at home and with corona I don't want them to suffocate if they get it. So give me that inhaler. You can get a new one." And she holds out her hand. "Oh boy, not going to happen, lady," I said in my most dry and mocking tone. "I need these meds and they don't help for corona. I don't care. Give it here," she says as she thrusts out her hand again. "My kids need it more." I again tell her no, and put my medication in my backpack and try to put on my headset. This is where Karen goes fully P and grabs my backpack and starts going through it. Luckily the hero bus driver was paying attention and we all lurch forwards as he hits the brakes. He stops the bus, stands up, and in his best drill instructor voice says, "Lady, give the man his backpack back now." There was absolutely no doubt of the authority in his voice, and the lady turns tomato red as she hands back the backpack. I thought that was it. Oh boy, I was wrong. I'm not going to type this in caps, but our hero yelled every word. Why on earth would you think that someone's asthma medication would help against corona? Besides, you saw the man use it. What if he has the virus but didn't get sick? Also, he used it. You are gross, lady. Get off of the bus now. The lady looks like a deer in the headlights but doesn't move. "Get off now." Hero yells again. Finally the lady got up and out of the bus. I thanked our hero bus driver as he sits back down and we get on our way again. As the bus drives off I saw the lady on her phone. No assault, police, destruction of property, so it could have been much worse. Still, I wish I could tell this to this Karen. Too bad we weren't out of the city yet, you disgusting bitch. Thank you. Next, I asked my cousin for stories about his mom aka, and he told me a bunch of them, and asked me to post them. Again, sorry for the translations. I had to translate from Lebanese Arabic because that's how my cousin told the story. I'll be sure to ask him for more stories. Introducing the cast. EA, entitled Aunt. CC, cool cousin. K, poor employee. GM, good man. Background info. EA was a really devout Muslim, who would try to shove her beliefs down other people's throat, and that got her into a fight in a supermarket in Australia one day. EA brought some beef from the supermarket, and when she paid for them, she realized that they weren't halal, like kosher, but for Muslims. EA, excuse me. K, what can I help you with, madam? EA, why is this meat not halal? K, excuse me? EA, I said, why is that meat not halal? CC, mom please. EA, Isn't this a country which respects people of all religions? Why doesn't your product have a halal label on it? P. I sincerely apologize for your product being the way it is, but that's just how we buy our products. EA. Well then, if your product isn't halal, that means that you guys are breaking the law. Does that make sense? P. Mom, please, I'm only a cashier. I'm not involved with buying products. EA. That's too bad, because someone has to take the blame for your supermarket, since it breaks the law. At this point, GM, who was a Muslim, interferes on behalf of the employee. GM, Mom, I am a Muslim and really dislike the fact that you are mistreating this poor cashier. EA, excuse me. GM, you heard me, Mom. I have been buying items from this supermarket for 10 years, and I never complained about their product's quality. EA, well then, you aren't a real Muslim, because you are buying from a supermarket which doesn't sell halal products. GM, that isn't my problem. There is a butcher down the street which sells halal products. There is no need to ruin a business because it simply doesn't sell the items you seek. EA, how dare you support these infidels for not selling halal food? How dare you call yourself a Muslim? GM, if you don't like the quality of the products here, just leave. EA, you are all going to hell. After EA said that, she stormed out of the supermarket, and when she left, CC apologized sincerely to the cashier and the man, so all was good in the end. TLDR, Entitled Aunt tries to shut down a supermarket because of religious beliefs, but gets shut down by a good man. Thank you. Next. In February of this year, I was doing a freelance job for a friend of mine. Frankly, I really should not work for him, because his clients are just the worst. And this wedding was no exception. I could write a pretty long post about the couple themselves because they were just dreadful, but this one will only be focusing on my brief, yet somewhat annoying, encounter with the bride's mother. Just to paint a clear picture, this happened during the sermon and the chapel was small, I mean like shoebox small. To make it worse, at least half the guests were trying to film the sermon with their cell phones, all standing up, many standing right up front, the aisle full of people. It was every videographer's nightmare. A side note, the groom didn't seem to care, as he was actually sitting texting, during his own wedding ceremony. So I was running a basic 3-camera setup, which had the sermon covered pretty well. Not super creatively, but about as good as could be expected under the circumstances. The camera that was set up in the aisle was mounted pretty high, to shoot over everyone standing up front. This was also the only camera I had any access to, as the other two were unreachable due to all the guests standing up. Every now and then I would move this camera's angle slightly, just for variation. Obviously, as it was mounted way above my head, I wasn't bothering with making these camera movements elegant, because I could just cut to either of the other two cameras during post-production. Hence the purpose of a multi-camera setup. I had just done this for the 3rd time when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I looked around to see a lady wearing a hat that looked like a bird had built a nest on it. "Yes, Mom?" I whispered to her, not wanting to speak during the sermon. Thinking back, I have no idea why I was being considerate about this as no one else was. The woman motioned for me to follow her outside. I shrugged and did so. The following conversation followed. "This is an important day for my daughter," EM said. "That's great. Who's your daughter?" I asked. I wasn't joking. There had been more than 20 people in the bridal suite, but she definitely had not been one of them. "I am the bride's mother," EM said with a screeching voice. I looked back at her, flashing back in my head if I had seen her earlier, but I definitely hadn't. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know," I said. "Was there something you needed? You are ruining my daughter's wedding video." EM screeched again. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, totally confused by what she meant. "I have been watching you, just moving that camera harshly. That movement is going to show in her video. You are ruining her wedding." EM yelled. "You won't see the movement in the video, Mom. That's why we use multiple cameras," I said, still very patiently. "Don't you tell me about wedding videos, young man. I am a professional wedding photographer and I have been doing wedding photos since before you were born." She yelled again. I was surprised her throat wasn't starting to hurt. "But wedding photos and videos aren't the same thing," I said, making a Jim from The Office face. "I know that, but the movement is going to show on the video." What part of this are you not understanding? EM yelled again. Mom, if one camera moves, we cut to another camera during editing. I tried explaining again. If we never cut to different shots, it would be a very boring wedding video. Don't you call my daughter's wedding boring. I'm paying you. I am the client. EM continued. That's not what I said. My voice was getting tired now as I was getting frustrated and angsty. I also wanted to get back inside to make sure none of the Uncle Bobs knock my cameras over. Mom, I really need to get back inside, I said and started walking away. EM grabbed me by the shoulder and spun me around. I was not finished. She yelled. Now, I should mention, I spend a lot of time on this channel and there's one thing I never get to say but have always wanted to. This seemed to be the perfect time for it because it was one of the rare occasions that I wasn't working for myself. Then maybe you would like to speak to my manager? I said smugly, pointing to my friend who was doing the wedding photos. With that, I walked away. From the corner of my eye, I saw her approach my friend and he followed her outside. Obviously, I couldn't hear what was said but I asked my friend afterward. Emmy, what did she say to you? My friend, she told me that you were ruining her daughter's wedding and I should fire you. I promised her I'll do so right after the wedding. So OP, you are never allowed to film this couple's wedding again. My friend is awesome. The entitled mother did throw glances at me for the rest of the day, but didn't bother me again. A side note though, I never once saw her with the bride, so I am still not convinced that she was really the bride's mother. Thank you. Next. This happened about 2 months ago before all this COVID-19 lockdown. To give some more preface, a long time ago I got an old hand-me-down jacket from my uncle who happened to work in the prison system. This jacket happened to have a Dodge Federal Bureau of Prisons logo on it. I've worn it many times and it's always garnered some interesting reactions from people. I just so happened to be wearing this jacket for our encounter with EM. Now, onto the story. Me and my fiancée went out to grab a bite to eat on a Saturday evening. As we ordered and sat at our table, we decided to play with our Nintendo Switch, which apparently is EM bait, while we waited for our food. After a few minutes, I had to go and use the bathroom. About a few minutes after I left, according to my fiancée, some lady, the EM of the story, came up to our table and had her child, the EK, sit down in my chair which prompted this exchange. EM, excuse me? Did you mind watching my kid? There's no kids play area here and I saw that you had a Switch for him to play. EK, what games do you have on your Switch? Do you have Fortnite? EM, starting to walk away. Have fun. Fiancée, putting the Switch inside her bag. Mom, I'm sorry but I didn't agree to watch your kid. He's your responsibility. Also, I don't trust people I don't know with my Switch. EK, but my mom said I can play with you Switch. EM, to my fiancée, hey now, don't be like that. It's hard being a single mom. Plus you obviously have the means to entertain my child, so why not help me out? Fiancée, like I said, I'm not responsible for your child. I didn't even invite him to sit here. Please leave. EM, now you listen to me. I know the owner here. I will have you thrown out if you don't watch my child. As the EM is yelling this, I happen to be walking out of the bathroom towards the table where my fiancée was. As I'm walking up, the EM sees me coming and notices the Dodge logo on my jacket. A smirk crossed her face, and as I got to the table, EM, to me, now you look like someone in law enforcement. This rude lady here is refusing to give my little angel her Switch to play with after she promised to do so. Me, cutting her off and with a stern voice, is there a reason you're harassing my fiancée and trying to take the Switch I bought for her? I watched as the EM smirk give way to a look that said oh shit. She quickly grabbed her child and made a beeline to her table. The EM didn't bother us afterwards outside of a few stolen glances. We got our food, ate it and left after finishing our meal. I was glad I picked that day to wear my uncle's old raincoat. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. But to give more detail about the jacket, I got it 15 years ago, and it was old when I got it. I never really had any issues from police officers when I wore the jacket outside of a conversation about where I got it. There are times though where I will have someone nervously ask me if I work for the prison system and breathe a sigh of relief when I tell them no. I wonder what makes them nervous. It's actually quite rare for me to wear it considering that 98% of the time I wear other jackets I have. Thank you. Next. So when I was 18, I am 20 now, I was working as a delivery guy at a pizza place. I wasn't having any vehicle and I was using a scooter from when I was 10. Cast, EM equals Karen, EK equals Karen's Goblin, me equals drone 001, F equals drone 002, IDK if I can put his real name and friend is too simple, CO equals Kiwaka. Story. Ring CO, welcome to pizza place name how can I help you? Ma'am we do not serve those here. Okay but it will take an hour and a half. Have a good day. OP we have a comment but there is a problem here. The lady wants brownies and a cake saying happy birthday EK. Me. So I need to buy brownies and a cake? CO. And a big bottle of Fanta, Sprite and Lipton. Me. Okay notes writing on a list. CO. Gives cooks to cook 12 pizzas. Later I have the pizzas and I go to the store to get the brownies and the sodas, pay, and go where I needed to get the cake. When I got to where I needed to deliver, heck, I realized it was my old neighbor. She was the god of entertainment. EM. Finally you arrived. Why did it took so long? Me. Well, EM. I don't care. I'm not paying for them. Me. What? Lady you can do that all of these are $95. EM. What? $95 for this BS. Then my friend saw me but also the EM and I used my hands to tell him to record and he did. EM. You are late as heck. I am not paying the food. And you will have to give my son your scooter you are even though too big for it. Me. Lady I am not giving you anything then I am starting to leave. EK then comes running with a bat and then hits me. My friend then thinked it was an elf and called the police. 3 minutes later then the police has come. The EM then plays the I am the victim card. F. She is lying I recorded everything. Then EM was with as heck. The police saw the recording and she was arrested for assault and much more. The police paid the pizza and the rest and we then had a party at the pizza place and we all had a laugh about the story. Hope Reddit sees the sequels. Thank you. Next. So this story happened back in 2012. I tend to have a good memory for details but since this happened 8 years ago I don't remember the dialogue exactly as it happened. The story is also pretty short so there's that. So as I mentioned before, this happened in 2012. I was 15 at the time and my little brother was 11. We used to live in the US, pretty much in the middle of the country. One random day my mom picked me and my brother from our schools and decided to take us to a Burger King that was pretty close by to where we lived at the time. We got there, got off the minivan, went inside and it was pretty empty, maybe 3 or 4 people eating, one guy at the cash register, the cooks and manager in the back and a security guard outside. As soon as we walk up to place our order, in comes the Karen EM of the story with her small child, maybe around 5 or 6 years old. Now, I mentioned earlier that I have good memory for details, and this woman made me so enraged that I remember pretty much exactly what she looked like. Blonde, shoulder-length blonde hair with bad highlights, very skinny, wearing a casual business suit with a neon pink shirt underneath and big ass sunglasses up on her head, and high heels. I swear we hadn't taken more than 10 seconds deciding what to order before she pushed her way in front of us and demanded to order first. My mom obviously got angry and told her to wait, but this woman wasn't having it. The wild Karen started straight up screaming at my mother that she deserves to order first, and my mom, while usually the sweetest woman you'll ever meet, is a Latina, although she doesn't look like it. And as a Latina has what my dad likes to describe as a raging fighting spirit and wasn't gonna let some random woman bully her into submission. So when Karen realized that my mother wasn't gonna back down she decided to raise her fist and attempt to hit my mother. Before this, while the screaming fight was going on, my brother was trying to calm my mom down, and I was trying to talk sense into the giant entitled woman baby in front of me. But as soon as we saw that this woman was going to hit our mother we immediately put ourselves between them and I raised my hand to catch the woman's fist, and was prepared to fight back, if she so much as managed to touch my sweet, beautiful mother. At 15 years old I was about 1.75 meter tall, so not that tall at the time, but definitely big enough so that she couldn't get past me. While the fighting was going on, The cashier dude went to the back to get the manager and the security guard ran in to grab Karen by her arms. The manager proceeded to tell her to leave the premises of the restaurant. The security guard let her go and she, her poor child and her giant ass sunglasses left the place. My mom, happy as could be that both of her children defended her from what could have been a physical fight and bragged to all my family and her friends about this. Manager also gave us one of those Hershey's cheesecake ice cream pie things they have had for free for our troubles. TL. Doctor, a wild Karen demanded to place an order at a Burger King before us. Proceeded to get in a verbal fight with my mom, and when Karen attempts to hit my mom, my brother and I step between them to stop her. Wild Karen proceeds to get kicked out of the restaurant, and we got a free dessert for what happened. Thank you. Next. This story takes place during my freshman year of high school. Here's the cast. EK. Guess. S1. Senior 1. Guy was in senior year during my freshman year. S2. Senior 2. The only other percussionist senior that year. BD. Band director. EP. Again, no brainer here. Me. Clever joke. Honestly though, I was more of a bystander in this one. It's glorious to watch, though. So when I was in high school, I was in the school band and was a percussionist. This is important, because unlike the rest of the band, BD recognized that the percussion section had probably the best group of people for learning on their own. So we got to practice at our own, usually much faster, pace in the choir room, which was attached to the band room, and had a thing set up that was essentially a 7-foot long practice pad, a plank of wood wrapped in a carpet. What can I say? That's Kentucky for you. That we could play and learn our parts on. However, there was one kid, who was in my year, who thought he could get away with fucking anything because his mother was one of the 2 vice principals of the school. He was also a complete piece of shit that I hated dealing with, as he insulted my then girlfriend constantly, made fun of other people for their weight despite him being rounder than the goddamn Pillsbury Doughboy, and one time straight up sucker, punched me in the back of the head after a science class for having the gall to tell him off and saying I was done with his shit. This is EK, and, my luck being what it is, EK was also a percussionist in band. What made it worse, though, is that he was terrible at it and never fucking practiced. And this one detail, is what really got on the nerves of the only 2 seniors that year, who both acted as co-section leaders for us percussionists. Getting the right parts and the right number of parts for us from BD, legitimately helping those who needed it with their parts because of complicated things that would sometimes show up in our sheet music, and were honestly pretty damn good percussionists overall to boot. This is notable, because our school was known for its band. Ever since the director who was there when I got hired, we had always been one of the top high school bands in the region. And these 2 seniors? They were some of the best percussionists to come out of the program at the time. So one day, about halfway through our first semester, S1 has gotten completely fed up with this kid's refusal to practice his parts. It gets to the point where he, almost yelling after trying to get him to learn and play his actually very easy part for our winter concert, looked at this kid and said, "Why are you even in here, in this band, if you aren't going to practice your damn part?" And EK just chooses the exact fucking wrong thing to say. He looks S1, a very talented and skilled percussionist, in the eye, and says, "I took band because I wanted an easy A and I chose percussion because it doesn't take any actual skill or talent." Now, it's a common joke that percussion is the easiest group of musical instruments to learn, and that all percussionists and drummers are the dumb ones of any band. But, intrinsically, every musician who makes those jokes knows they don't mean them, as while it is the easiest family of instruments to learn and to start playing, it also has one of the highest differences between a novice and someone with even middling skill, let alone higher level percussionists like those who play in orchestras professionally. And S1. Well, S1 was absolutely fucking done with this kid's shit talking, and was definitely the most skilled percussionist in that room, and he goes the fuck off. For about the next 20 minutes, he ranted and yelled at EK. There's no way in hell I could even try to reconstruct the full amount of what was said, but there are a few notable moments from it that are burned into my memory with how fucking funny it was to watch from the outside. At one point, he takes the drumsticks he had in his hand, and says, "I want you to fucking watch this," starts what was a fairly difficult rudiment for most of the people there at a tempo of about 135-140 BPM, and holds that speed for about 25 seconds for the purposes of demonstration. S1, do you really think that didn't take skill, or talent, of any fucking kind? EK, well, you just practiced it until you could do it. S1, what the fuck do you think skill is? This continued for a little while until S1, finally, had to pause to catch his breath a bit. So EK, who thinks he can get a word in edgewise, is just about to speak and try to appeal to the idea of my mom will hear about this, or something to that effect, when S2, the absolute fucking legend, stops him by interjecting his own little tidbit. He doesn't give a goddamn who your mommy is. After chewing this kid out for the next few minutes, S1 goes and has a word with BD. Turns out, this had been a coming storm for about 2-3 weeks, and S1 had arranged with BD to at least get EK out of the percussion section if he disrespected it or the band again. Suffice to say, by the end of that class period, EK was no longer a percussionist in our band, and by the end of the week, BD had talked with the school's principal, and had him removed from band class entirely. I later found out that EP initially tried to step in and make the administration play favorites, because S1 had yelled at her precious little boy, but the principal overrode her authority and pointed out that EK had disrespected the band, which was one of the main enticements for fundraisers for the school thanks to our skill and a once-yearly gala arranged by the band that was the biggest amount of non-government funding brought into the school each year. Needless to say, her idea didn't get much traction outside of that little conversation, either. Edit. Messed up some abbreviations with EK and EP getting mixed up. Sorry about that. Wrote this on like 2-3 hours of sleep and it's the first time writing something in the entitled parents story format.